Hi everyone. Today I have a real interesting, hopefully fun video to show you. I'm going to be doing 3 recipes out of this tiny baking cookbook. These are real recipes. You can really eat them. You cook them in the oven and you have little utensils and they make little bitty meals. So today I will be making peanut butter cookies or cookies. I'll be making a thin crust pizza. I had the recipe in the book for a deep dish pizza, but being as I'm making something else and I only have one pie pan, I decided I would make the pizza just a regular thin crust pizza. So I'm going kind of off of the recipe, but kind of not. And then I'll be making a pot pie. When I get ready to do each recipe, I'll go over what you need. I'll be doing the peanut butter cookies first. And for that, we'll need 4.5 wee spoons of flour, 1/8 wee spoon of baking soda, 1.5 wee spoons of butter softened, 2 wee spoons of light brown sugar, 1 wee spoon of sugar, 2 wee spoons of creamy peanut butter, 1 wee spoon of egg beaten. And you need to beat these because you can't just take 1 wee spoon of egg if it's not all mixed up, because then you can't get the yolk and the white ratio correct. So we have to beat this first. 1/4 wee spoon vanilla and butter to grease pan. What do we need to make these as far as the utensils? For the tiny stuff, we're going to need a little tiny baking sheet, a little tiny mixing bowl, a little tiny mixing spoon, and these are the wee spoons. You have the 1 wee spoon, the 1/2 wee spoon, and the 1/4 wee spoon. And if you want to use regular spoons, the 1 wee spoon is 1/4 of a teaspoon, the 1/2 is 1/8 of a teaspoon, and the 1/4 is 1/16 of a teaspoon. So confusing. I think they should have put the right numbers on there. And then of course they're asking you to use some other stuff too. You need a cookie sheet to put the baking sheet on so it don't fall through to the bottom. When you first start mixing, it's going to be easier to use a small bowl, so they ask for that, and a toothpick. So let's begin. First step you need to do is take your little baking sheet, grease it with butter, and then just grease your pan, and then set this on the cookie sheet and set it aside. So take your small bowl, add your 4.5 wee spoons of flour. That's 4.5. Now I am concerned about the baking soda because it says 1/8 wee spoon. I don't have a 1/8. I'm going to use the 1/4 wee spoon, which is actually a 1/16 of a teaspoon. And then mix those two up together and set that aside. In your tiny mixing bowl, stir together the 1.5 wee spoons of softened butter. There is 1, and there is a 1/2. All right, so for the light brown sugar, we're going to do 2 wee spoons. Can you imagine itty bitty cookies? Me either. And 1 wee spoon of granulated sugar. And then mix that until fluffy. And I'll try to hold this where you can see. Now this is made for children. Having 7 kids, I do know that if you're big enough to handle little utensils, you're big enough to not need little utensils. And if you are using little utensils, little kids, They have to have big ones where they can grasp. So I mean, the idea is fun, but I really don't know how well a kid could use this. Okay, we need 2 teaspoons of creamy peanut butter. And another thing is, you probably want to have all this stuff on hand, because to buy something just for this, you're going to have a lot left over. Okay, so that is stirring quite nicely. So add 1 teaspoon of egg. And then we need 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla. And I know I'm in the way here. There we go. And stir that up until a nice creamy batter forms. So slowly add the flour mixture and stir after each addition. These are supposed to make 6 wee cookies. Make sure, just like in any cooking, you scrape the sides to get all of the flour mixed in with the peanut butter mix. Okay, and then I'll add the rest of the flour. And then totally mix that until totally combined. So take your peanut butter mixture and separate it into 6 different cookies. I'm not exactly sure. I'm just using my teaspoon here. If they spread too much, I think we're going to be in trouble. So take your teaspoon and flatten them out a bit, like a cookie. Next, take your toothpick. You know how regular peanut butter cookies, you take your fork and press it down and you have your little lines? Just take your toothpick and draw your lines. You can make, they said to do like a pound sign, you know, like that. However you want to do it. Take your regular cookie sheet, put your tiny baking sheet on there, and dust it with sugar. So put that in a preheated 350-degree oven for 7 to 9 minutes until lightly brown. So it says, if you're a kid, to have an adult help you get the pan out of the oven. You let this cool completely. I am going to kind of cut around them so they don't stick together when I remove them. I'll be using the wee knife to cut between them, like that. Look how easy that does. They might look like cookies if I separate them. So I'll let these cool completely, then I'll move them to a plate, cover them up so Dave will not see what they are before the big reveal. All right, so we've already got the tiny peanut butter cookies done. Next, we're going to be making more or less the appetizer, which will be a thin crust pizza. The recipe called for the deep dish pizza, as I explained before. So I will leave the recipe that they have in the book, and I will put down the recipe that I make as well. So for the thin crust pizza, we will need a thin crust pizza dough, 2 teaspoons tomato sauce. I do have pizza sauce here. 2 pinches of shredded mozzarella cheese. I'm going to be using a little bit of real bacon pieces, and I'll also be using chopped black ripe olive pieces, oregano or basil or both, and olive or vegetable oil to grease the pan. I'm going to be using vegetable oil. The wee tools that we'll be using for this, I'll be using, instead of the pie pan to make deep dish, I'll be using the baking sheet pan to make it a thin crust pizza. We'll need our tiny rolling pin. We need our wee knife, a full-size cookie sheet to put the pan on. We need our wee spoons, the stirring spoon, the pizza cutter, and the pie server, and I'm not sure if I'll use this being as I'm using a rectangle pan instead of a deep dish pie pan, but we'll see. All right, so the first thing you want to do is grease your pan. Now if you're using a deep dish pan, they also say to put cornmeal on it, but I'm not going to do that for this one. I'm just going to grease it with vegetable oil. And we'll put it on the big cookie sheet and set it aside. So take your thin pizza dough. You should leave it out for a little bit to get to a room temperature so it's more pliable. And here we go. Hold your breath. Oh, that wasn't too bad. It has expanded quite a bit. I don't need much because I'm not going to be using much. So take your pan, put it upside down. With your little wee knife, cut your dough around the pan. You know, the knife is not sharp, so it will not hurt the little kids, cut the kids' hands, but it does make it kind of hard to cut anything with it. You're supposed to roll this out as thin as possible. We'll take our little rolling pin. Now this is going to be way longer than it needs to be, and probably way wider, but pizzas do have rims, so we'll make the excess a rim. What do you think of that? Okay, so take your dough and put it on the pan and take it from the center and push it all the way to the edges. The excess you can trim, which I will do. You want a little bit of a ridge to hold the sauce. And I'm trying to, this one and this one's going to have a ridge. The sides aren't going to have a ridge very much. So take your 2 wee spoons of pizza sauce and we'll spread that out. Don't go clear to the end. I'm going to use a little bit more. I'm going to use a 1/3 wee spoon. Top with the herbs if you want. I've got a little bit of basil here, a little bit of oregano. We'll put some of our bacon, spread that out a little bit, and then add your chopped black olives. And you can make whatever kind of pizza you want. And then add a couple pinches of mozzarella cheese. And I'm going to set that aside while I make the other dish. For our entree, we'll be making a pot pie. And we'll need pre-made refrigerated pie crust. You need 6 wee spoons of cream of chicken or cream of mushroom soup. I lucked out, I got cream of chicken and mushroom. That should be good. 1 wee spoon of softened butter and flour for dusting. And for the wee tools that we need, we're going to need the pie pan, the wee spoons, the wee knife, the rolling pin, the spoon, and the pie server. You'll need a full-size cookie sheet, and you will need a fork to crimp the edges. I have my work surface here, and I've got some flour on it. I did lay out my pie crust so it can be pliable. Okay. We take our pie pan, and we take and put it upside down. We're going to need 2 of these, and we're going to cut around the pie pan. We need a top and a bottom. And like I told you with the pizza, that knife is not sharp. I've got flour on my rolling pin, and I'm going to roll the circles out just a little bit so they aren't so thick and so they fit in the pie pan. You don't need to do too big because you already measured it. Does not say I have to grease the pie pan, but I'm going to anyway because I don't like anything sticking. Just going to take a little bit of butter and do along the sides and the bottom like that. I think we'll take the smaller one, put it in the pie pan, and you want to go from the center to the edges. You want it to get up on the edge like that. You don't necessarily need it to go over, and we can trim that. So it's on the bottom and it's on the sides. We'll take our soup. We need 6 wee spoons. So there's 1, 5. All right, so then just spread this out. And I'm using my wee mixing spoon. And you can probably use salt and pepper to flavor this too, if you want. Now lay the second circle on the top. So we're going to pinch that to seal it. And then use the fork to crimp the edges. Isn't that cute? So far, so good. Then we're going to spread the butter. So then take your knife and score it. It says into a star pattern, but I'm just going to do it into an X. So put your pot pie on the cookie sheet and put it in a preheated 350-degree oven. This should take 10 minutes. That one should take 11 to 15 minutes. So we'll check on it about 10 minutes and see how it is. So here is Dave's 3-course meal. I made it with this cookbook. For the appetizer, we had the thin crust pizza, bacon and black olive. For the main dish, we have a chicken and mushroom pot pie. And for dessert, we have peanut butter cookies. Let's see what Dave thinks. I fixed you a 3-course meal. That is, for the appetizer, you have a thin crust pizza with bacon bits and black olives. For the entree is a chicken and mushroom pot pie, and for dessert is peanut butter cookies. You have a pizza cutter here, and a knife, and a pie thing there. So you can, the only thing I don't have is a fork to eat the pot pie because they didn't include one. Yeah, they're not sharp because these are made for kids. And that pot pie might still be a little bit warm.
Can I have more than one?
That's the only thing I made, but however, I'm going to make you supper after this.
Okay. That's actually very good. This is for a small appetite.
Definitely not for you then.
It actually is very good.
That's made out of cream of chicken and mushroom soup.
Okay. Yeah, I was not detecting any pieces of chicken, but it tastes good. Gonna sample it. Are there more cookies left? Or
There's 4 more pieces of cookies. So.
Ooh, 4 whole.
Yeah, I made 6.
Well, these actually are very tasty. I remember you buying this thing a while back now, but this was quite a shock here. The pizza is really good. The cookies, well, it's all good. The pizza and the cookies are the 2 stars. But the little pot pie is good too. Kids would have a blast with this.
Recipe deals for easy meals. Please like, subscribe, and share. This is Cooking with Sherry. Until we meet again.